Yes, hello everybody. Welcome back to the Dynasty Hot Seat, the only Dynasty show out there that is a certified inferno. Today, episode 2 of Fantasy Career Retrospective. We're going to have a little look at Russell Wilson. What has he done during his career at Seattle? How did it all go wrong last year at Denver? What do the numbers say? And what's going to happen going forward? So let's kick things off with a fantasy retrospective for Russell Wilson. Okay. So thank you so much for joining. If you are new here, please remember, leave a like and a comment and share this video around. It really does help. And while you're at it, hit that little subscribe button too. That will be absolutely amazing. Thank you for your time. And let's get right into it. Let's have a look at Russell Wilson, a 2-star recruit coming out of NC State and, of course, Wisconsin as well. Ended up going in the 3rd round, which people forget. People assume Russell Wilson must have been going in the 1st round. No, he's a 3rd round draft pick, so didn't have that pedigree to start with. But, he comes in his rookie year in 2012, long time ago. He's averaging 17.2 fantasy points per game. He had one game where he threw 4 touchdowns. He had 26 total touchdowns thrown. He's throwing 194 yards per game on average. He's rushing for 30.5 yards a game. He's got a 64% pass completion. He's an All-Pro. He's an Offensive Rookie of the Year nominee. And he goes to the Pro Bowl in his 1st year. And he finishes as quarterback 11 as a rookie. What a start. I mean, one of the best things that you can do as a rookie is come out and have a season like that. Establish yourself as a fantasy asset. And people who bought in, despite what's happened last year, what an output Russell Wilson has done for you over the last 10 years. To have someone on your roster for 10 years as an elite talent, fantastic, because what really separated him here was his rushing and his legs. That was elite amongst his peers. And going into the next year, 2013, he only went and won a Super Bowl. His average points per game hovering around the same amount, slightly lower at 16.9. He's throwing another 4 touchdown game. He had 26 touchdowns exactly again. He had more yards, 209. He had 33 rushing yards per game, 63% pass completion. Very good. All-Pro, Offensive Player of the Year nominee. Went to the Pro Bowl. That was enough for a quarterback 8 then. So around about 17 points per game. That's where he's hitting. And then he kind of took off after that for a few years. In 2014, they did lose that Super Bowl because of a pass that he should have never been asked to throw, if we all remember. He finished as quarterback 3 in 2014. But in 2014 and 2015, finishes as quarterback 3. Averages over 20 points per game doing it. Very, very impressive. He's throwing well over 200 yards on average. He's rushing for 54 yards per game in 2014, which is absolutely incredible. Again, more Pro Bowl appearances, Offensive Player of the Year nominations, All-Pro, all of that great stuff. The rushing really separating him out here. In 2016, he was a little injured, quarterback 11, fell back a little bit, back to that sort of 17 points per game mark. And you think, okay, what's going to happen? He bounced back in 2017 after a down year in 2016. He had 22 points per game. He had 2 games before throwing touchdowns. He had 34 touchdowns in total. He almost threw for 250 yards per game, rushed for about 40 yards a game. He went to the Pro Bowl. He's quarterback 1 overall. So the last time we've seen Russell Wilson have a little bit of adversity, he turned it around and came back as quarterback 1. Now, I wouldn't take that into consideration too much because we got more to say about Russell Wilson. He continued then kind of similar to to what he had been. Quarterback 9, quarterback 3, up and down, around, constantly around that top 10 with similar kind of production, 19, 20 points per game, throwing around the 30-something touchdowns per game, throwing, 200-ish yards per game. Rushing now, the rushing kind of went down here to 20 or so yards per game in 2018 and 2019. In 2020, we see more of the same. He's finishing at, in 2020, he got 22.5 points per game and only finishes quarterback 6, which I thought was interesting. But again, his rushing yards about 30 per game. He had a nearly 70% pass completion. Very, very accurate. Excellent, excellent. And then things started to go wrong in 2021. Remember? He finished with 17 points per game, which, he's done in his career before. He had 25 touchdowns, which, again, not bad. 222 yards per game throwing, 13 yards per game rushing. That is interesting. Something has happened in 2021 where the rushing floor halved. And that has seen a huge impact on the fantasy points that he is scoring, in my opinion. He's still quite accurate at 65% completion. He was nominated to the Pro Bowl. He went to the Pro Bowl. He shouldn't have, right? He really should not have. He finished as quarterback 15, quarterback 13 in points per game. And then it all went wrong. Everything went wrong. The big move to Denver, everyone talking about it. It was meant to be the toughest division in football. Russell Wilson, Derek Carr, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes. I mean, what a season some of those guys have had, right? Especially Russell. He averaged the lowest points per game total of his career at just over 15. He did have 2 games where he threw 2 touchdowns. That was in weeks 14 and 18 at the end. In fact, the only time he went over 20 points a game this season, there were 4 times. 3 of them came in weeks 14, 17, and 18. So I thought that was interesting that as the season went on, you're like, okay, we're maybe seeing something here with Russell Wilson. He only threw 16 touchdowns. His yards per game was actually around about fine, 235. His rushing yards per game, under 20 still. He threw at 60% completion, so lower than you would expect. He received no nominations for anything, Pro Bowl, etc. He finished at quarterback 16. You would have thought he finished as quarterback 40, the way people talked about it. But he did finish as quarterback 16, quarterback 18 points per game. What does this mean, though? Here are some things I noticed about Russell Wilson while diving into the stats. He has an oddly low rushing touchdown rate. You think someone like Russell, who's known for his scrambling and, kind of his rushing, he doesn't have a lot of rushing touchdowns, which I thought was interesting. In terms of his year in Denver, the statistics show he was kind of middle of the road for his career for pass attempts, middle of the road for yards per game, and actually, weirdly, middle of the road for interceptions. He's a guy that does throw a lot of interceptions, so it wasn't out of the ordinary amount of interceptions he threw. What was out of the ordinary was he had a career low in pass completion percentage. He had a career low in touchdowns thrown, and he also had a career low for passer rating. But this is the big one that I found, and this is the one that got me digging. He had a career high for sacks taken. In total, his team lost 368 yards because of sacks taken to Russell Wilson. He got hit with a sack 1 in every 10 times he tried to throw the ball, which is just incredibly poor. So that led me to think, well, maybe Russell Wilson isn't the problem. Maybe the Denver Broncos are the problem. So I thought, right, let's go back to when they last had a good quarterback. It was Peyton Manning, 2015, they won Super Bowl 50. I found some really interesting, I find them interesting. Let me know what you think. 2016, Trevor Siemian, they missed the playoffs. He took 31 sacks. The next year, they had Trevor Siemian in again. They missed the playoffs. They had a losing record. he took 33 sacks, the most in his career. 2018, Chase Keenum, losing record, took 34 sacks, the most in his career. 2019, Joe Flacco. He took 26 sacks in 8 games, which, if he played the full season, it would have rounded out as the most in his career. They had a losing record. 2020, Drew Lock, losing record, 19 sacks in 13 games. Teddy B, 2021, losing record, sacked 31 times. The Denver Broncos suck. There's your main issue, right? Russell Wilson has, like we said, a career high in sacks taken, career low in pass reading, touchdowns, throws, and pass completion, because his offensive line is terrible. And it has been terrible for the best part of a decade now. So this is what needs to happen if you want to get back on the Russell Wilson train. He needs a better offensive line. I think we found out a few things this year. One of them is that the Seattle Seahawks aren't as bad as people said they were. They're actually quite a good team. And we've seen that whenever someone like Geno Smith, who, you know, with the best will in the world, is not an elite quarterback, he has come in and he's done really well in that system because he's protected well, because it is a good system, because it is a well-run machine with Pete Carroll. The Denver Broncos are, you know, hiring head coaches based on quarterbacks that they might be able to bring in, something the Jets might be doing as offensive coordinator now. Terrible decision. So here are the things that needs to happen. The offensive line needs to be addressed in the draft. Needs to be. Yeah. They've got a couple of pretty good picks that they could use. Yeah, I think they got a first-round pick. They've maybe got 2 third-round picks as well. So I'd expect that to be addressed. I would quite like another weapon for Russell Wilson, but Jerry Jeudy's fitness is actually very, very important here, because he was a great weapon, but he was injured quite a bit last year. He missed 3 games. In 2 of those games, Russell Wilson's pass accuracy was 50%. That's not good. I did like the way Greg Dulcich came along. Yeah. So there is a chance here, but nothing matters if the offensive line is terrible. Russell Wilson has shown that his legs aren't what they used to be. That we have the data for. So he's not going to be able to scramble as well as he did. So if he's protected well, I do expect him to come back better as a passer. But if the Broncos do not address that offensive line seriously, then I have to be out on Russell Wilson. Have to be. Now, one more thing I will say, and, you know, far be it from me, like Russell Wilson is an elite athlete, but is it just me, or did he look incredibly out of shape to everybody last year? Right? So here's what I'm wanting. I'm wanting him like Terrell Owens. I want to see him doing push-ups in his driveway. I hate, in general, you know, all the hype that happens whenever people see, you know, Zeke Elliott doing a workout drill that he's put it up on Instagram, or anyone like that, like putting up a workout drill. People lose their mind. I want to see that from Russell Wilson this year. I want to see him working out as much as possible. I want to see those drills going up and down. I want to see him in the best shape of his life. I need to see an addressed offensive line. I need to see interviews of his teammates backing him. I mean, things like him getting sacked and his team not picking him up off the ground. I mean, no, not a good sign. So there's a lot that we need. Need a new head coach in with experience that you trust to do a good job. There's a lot of things that need to happen and need to go right to trust Russell Wilson again. And for me, certainly, there are more things that can go wrong or continue to go wrong that can go right for him. We have to see what kind of value he has. A lot of people thinking, oh, Russell Wilson's going to drop, there's going to be value. The problem with that is it's a lot of people thinking it. You're not the only one. So if everyone's thinking Russell Wilson might be sneaky value, then he's not sneaky value. He's just value. So those are the things, in my opinion, that need to be fixed for Russell to get back to the days where he was when he was at Seattle, where he was an elite quarterback. I am worried about his legs. I am worried about his fitness. I am worried about the offensive line. I am worried about some of the weapons that he has. I am worried about the head coach. I am worried about the Broncos as a franchise. I am worried about their ability to address the problems that they have. Yeah, I'm worried about a lot of things. And if that's not addressed, I'm out in Russell Wilson. If it is, might have to think about jumping back in. But those are what the numbers say. If there's anything else you think I've missed, let me know. Tell me any fun facts you have about Russell Wilson, any kind of stats that you've seen this year that were interesting. I did like the last couple of weeks he started to slowly address things. So that is a positive. But there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of building to be done. And, at least with that contract, he ain't going anywhere anytime soon. So there's a chance that he can come back. But actually, after digging into it, I think it's a bit lower than a lot of people might think. So we'll have to see what happens with Russ. And that's all I got for you guys. Thank you so much for joining today. Again, like we said at the start, if you've not already, see if you can hit that subscribe button and join us here on the Dynasty Hotseat. And if you'd like to give it a little thumbs up, and like I said, leave a little comment. What do you think about Russell Wilson? How do you rate his chances of making it back into that top, 12 tier range of quarterbacks? So thank you so much for giving up some time to watch this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and we'll have a few more of these coming before next season kicks off. So enjoy the rest of your day. And remember, keep yourselves and your teams lit, and we'll see you next time.